There is a famous story about a little boy who was sick and could not go to church, so he stayed home with his mother. It was Palm Sunday, and on this day, the children usually joined the entrance procession with palms in their hands. His father returned from the church holding a palm branch. The little boy was curious and asked, "Why do we have palm branches on Palm Sunday? Dad, why do we call it Palm Sunday?" His dad explained, "You see, when Jesus came into town, everyone waved palm branches to honor him. So we got palm branches in the church today." The little boy replied, "Oh, shucks. The one Sunday I miss is the Sunday that Jesus shows up." What a special day. Happy people singing. It was a festival time in Jerusalem, and Jesus was going to be the new king. The crowds were dreaming of trumpets and towers and capes and sashes, flowing robes and sparkling scepters. The disciples were dreaming of becoming MPs and MLAs and cabinet ministers. They were overwhelmed with the tremendous welcome. They dreamt of putting on shining robes and use might for right to fight evil. 500 years earlier, the prophet Zechariah said that one day there would be a day like this one. That ancient promise was etched deeply in the minds and hearts of the people. The words of Psalm 31 had been like a national lament. "Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am in distress. My eye is wasted from grief, my soul and my body also. For my life is spent with sorrow and my years with sighing. My strength fails because of my misery and my bones waste away." Psalm 31 verses 9 to 10. For half a millennium, the people were waiting with hope and enthusiasm for David's successor to gallop into town, assume the throne, and change their sad song. The orchestra was waiting to play "Happy Days Are Here Again." It had been so long. Would this be the day? As Jesus rode into his capital city, tourists from all over Israel lined the streets and cheered wildly. They cut down palm branches and spread them over the road, just as their ancestors had done over 150 years ago when the Maccabees defeated the Syrian Antiochus Epiphanes. Would this be deja vu? Would Jesus lead the conquest of the hated Romans? The crowd shouted, "Hosanna!" which means "Save us, please," or "Save us now." Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. They shouted until they were hoarse. They laughed and cried and danced and sang. The disciples thought that it was the best day they had ever known. Nevertheless, for a few moments, I want you to imagine and see in the eyes of your mind the euphoria of this parade in Jerusalem in about 30 AD. Imagine the excitement and merriment that surrounds this occasion. Jesus is coming to town. Some say he is a great teacher. Others say he is a great healer. Still others say he is the Messiah come to lead the people of Judea against the mighty Romans. The account of Palm Sunday is one of the few events in the New Testament that is recorded in all the four Gospels. Details vary slightly, as they always do, but the major details remain intact. As we visualize this great event, I want you to focus on three things. First, the manner Jesus entered the holy city. Second, the reaction of the crowds to his coming. And finally, its meaning for us. Firstly, notice the entry of Jesus. It was time for the Passover celebration. The Passover was one of the three feasts that Jews were supposed to attend in Jerusalem, As a result, the population of Jerusalem swelled immensely. As a good Jew, Jesus was coming to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover with his disciples. In preparation, Jesus did something quite unusual. He instructed his disciples to borrow a young donkey upon which no one had ever ridden, for him to ride as he entered the city. It's interesting. Jesus and his followers had probably come by foot all the way from Galilee. But now for the last 3 kilometers, Jesus decided to ride on a donkey. This was obviously to fulfill the prophecy found in Zechariah chapter 9 verse 9. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So without questioning the master's request, the disciples did as they were instructed. After borrowing the colt, the disciples placed their cloaks on it as a saddle for their master to commence his journey. This method of transportation is significant. Of course, Jesus did not ride in an ornate chariot or on a large and imposing horse. He rode a young donkey, a small donkey, an insignificant animal generally thought of as a beast of burden. This was a metaphor perhaps. In 5 days, he would take on an even greater burden, the sins of the entire world. He would be spat on, beaten, mocked, jeered, and nailed to the cross. All of that may be symbolized by this lowly beast of burden, a donkey. On the other side of town, Pontius Pilate was entering Jerusalem about the same time on a horse, the symbol of war and power. Jesus rode a young donkey as a symbol of peace and humility. Jesus only practiced what he preached. So notice the manner in which he came. Secondly, notice the reaction of the crowd. Mark notes that as Jesus entered the holy city, many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. John is the only gospel that describes the type of branch as being palm. Victorious kings were honored in this fashion in biblical times. Many in the crowd were welcoming a king. They anticipated that he would lead an insurrection against the established order. They did not realize his kingdom was not of this world. This ecstatic crowd reminds us of the fickleness of human beings and how often we sit on the fence. We see Jesus being worshipped here by the crowds. But in a few days, these same people who are singing Hosanna will be shouting for him to be crucified. Today, they were in a celebratory mood. But when tough decisions were being made, such as choosing Jesus or Barabbas, the crowds would forget that just a few days prior, they were hailing Jesus as their king. They choose Barabbas. Not even those who seemed to be close to Christ remained faithful when the crowds turned against him. One of his disciples denied him and another betrayed him with a kiss. Some people were there just out of mere curiosity. They were just following the crowd. Thirdly, we should know the significance of Palm Sunday for us. The exuberant event of the Palm Sunday projects before us a king who is humble yet unflinching in his goal. His idea of saving his people was not by military triumph, but through self-sacrifice. Do I need Jesus as my Savior? If so, what sort of a role do I give him in my life? This exciting event of the Palm Sunday presents before us a crowd that is fickle, capricious, and volatile. They simply forget the same man before whom they laid their branches and cloaks. Am I a fair-weather Christian? Do I follow Jesus even through the way of the cross? More than 4 decades ago, Beatles superstar John Lennon caused a worldwide storm when he claimed that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Now, more than 4 decades later, the Beatles' former drummer Ringo Starr says he has found God after taking a long and winding road. He admitted he lost his way when he was younger, both as a Beatle experimenting with marijuana and LSD and alcohol. But Ringo Starr says that religion now plays an important role in his life. I am glad that as Ringo Starr has gotten older, he also gotten smarter. It's a shame that sometimes people have to get in such a bad way before they realize there is a better way. In good weather and in bad, amid stormy seas or gentle breeze, Jesus invites us to walk his way of the cross. He will then be our King, and we will say, Hosanna in the highest heavens. Praised be Jesus Christ.